We are the Galactic Federation, and we are now communicating through this instrument. Before we begin this transmission, however, we would like to test this instrument's mind complex for the required vocabulary sequence for the transmission with regards to the query placed by this instrument's mind complex is complicated. Upon scanning this instrument's mind complex, we are of the opinion that this instrument is ready for the transmission of our thought forms. Before we proceed with the sharing of our thoughts and insights, you must guard your mind complex, because we as the Galactic Federation have been warned by the Council, as well as it is our duty and honor to protect your planetary sphere and your free will from infringement. Hence, you must actively use your judgment and discern like a so-called sieve, discerning out only the required material that suits your own spiritual evolution, because each entity responds to certain information in a different manner. This is primarily determined by the level of vibration of an individualized portion of consciousness, which you all are. And as you recognize this fact that each individualized portion of consciousness or the entities on your planetary sphere have gained a different type of spiritual mass, this spiritual mass may vary from individualized portion to another individualized portion of consciousness, depending upon each entity's higher self and also upon its past experiences. In the past incarnations, the current lessons shall be formed. Today's query placed by this instrument pertains to the so-called COVID vaccine as known by your people. In this regard, this instrument wants to understand whether there are any agendas, extraterrestrial, humanoid, or otherwise. The agendas that your people can already see are blatantly visible before your eyes. However, there are other hidden agendas, and the reason behind the existence of this type of control for forcing vaccination upon individualized portions of consciousness, as this is not how a planet with respect to free will operates. This is in essence an exercise of the negative-oriented control aspect, since whenever entities are forced or controlled to perform a certain activity, it is 100% biased towards the negative polarity of control. even though it may be disguised as a proper work or a helpful hand for the people. However, beneath it lies the real reason of controlling every single entity's free will. This is also the reason why we can sense that there is a lack of respect for each individualized portion consciousness, free will, on your planet at these times, which has led to the creation of a type of psychological trauma and a type of psychological struggle for those entities who are in the positive polarity, for they understand the gameplay influence of the negatively oriented entities who wants to control other people's free will and are trying to force the so-called vaccinations upon the people of the planet Earth. This, in essence, has not been the first time this has occurred on your planet. This type of vaccination programs have been used many a times before in your time-space continuum, and they were primarily motivated and influenced by the negative-oriented entities, especially the so-called reptilian warlords or the reptilians who are influencing the elites of the Earth planet. And they are for the purpose of triggering the so-called hidden reptilian abilities inside certain entities who have been sent to the Earth planets for the purpose of certain missions of creating disarray and the spreading of the negative agenda throughout the planet. And also many of the entities who had been abducted prior, with the main purpose of getting them ready for this event, which is at sway on your planet. For this, as many of you have already sensed, is the final push by the negative-oriented entities to prevent the Earth planet from entering into the positive polarization. In essence, this is a type of psychological and spiritual warfare which is being conducted by the negative-oriented entities, especially the so-called reptilians, who are masters in the aspect of genetic manipulation. These reptilians, they have placed many entities on the Earth planet with their own gene codes embedded within their physical vehicle, either via the process of abduction or via the process of interaction with these entities on the Mars planet, wherein the entities in the humanoid form have and were happy to serve in negative polarity, for they were receiving benefits which may seem potentially and unwaveringly very prestigious for the humanoids to attain, especially the attaining of the so-called wealth on your planet. These reptilians, they had installed the genetic qualities of the reptilian mind complex. And just like previous times, in this current time space also, with the purpose of forced vaccinations being conducted on your planet, their main agenda is to activate the reptilian hidden genetic codes within. Many of the entities on the Earth planet who had been abducted or have been installed with the genetic codes of the reptilians. These people, especially, are the ones who had experiences of a spiritual nature and who also are more influenced by fear. For the activation of these entities, the reptilians along with the elites have created many variations of genetic activation vaccines which have been intermingled amongst the other vaccines that are being administered to your people at this time space, creating a flux of the energetic patterns and the rising and the arising of the genetic traits of the reptilian qualities from within these entities, physical vehicles, leading to the creation of an acute amount of fear and anger in the mind of such entities who have been activated with the purpose of this vaccine mainly being to activate these dormant qualities of the other entities. Once these entities are activated, they are able to fully receive telepathic communication from the reptilians on the Mars base. And many a times the reptilians are able to manipulate their physical vehicles to perform certain activities. This is normally being conducted at this time period, especially to gain an upper hand amongst your people, and also to act as a spreader of fear and anger amongst your people. For this is their main hidden agenda that they want to spread amongst your people at this time. Also, let us tell you that what is happening on your planet is something which is a sorry sight to see. The sight of all individualized portions of consciousness being forced to conduct a certain activity is not how the free will operates. Also remember that we as the Galactic Federation cannot interfere with your people's working. We can only suggest this way or that way. For at this time period, your people with this type of activities are indulging in negative oriented qualities as well. With the activation of such qualities, there may be a cancellation of the so-called privilege of free will of many individualized entities. Like we have stated before, your free will is of utmost importance, and many entities on your planet must understand this quality of free will to allow each individualized entity to explore and to choose as the desire to function in Earth. Also remember We, the Galactic Federation, are now disconnecting from this instrument, as this is all we can share at this time-space. We'll leave you now. Bye.